Over the past couple of months, if you've been paying attention to Mozilla, you've probably noticed a clear shift in direction. More of a focus on tech, and specifically on Firefox, which, from Mozilla, seems absolutely wild. A shift off of Mastodon, a focus on AI, and also advertising. Since the first quarter of 2024, Mitchell Baker stepped down as CEO, and Laura Chambers replaced her, at least in an interim role. I found this out very recently, but Laura Chambers is Australian. I guess we just take over everything. And today, I want to talk about two posts that really haven't had that much coverage. The first one from Mark Surman, the president of Mozilla. A free and open internet shouldn't come at the expense of privacy. And another by Laura Chambers, improving online advertising through product and infrastructure. These posts were both released on the same day, and they reference each other back and forth, and are kind of made to be consumed together to explain context missing from the other. If a few years ago you had told me Mozilla was getting involved in the advertising business, I probably would have laughed at you. For a couple of reasons. One, Mozilla actually doing something that would make them money? That would never happen. This is Mozilla. Mozilla only loses money. Secondly, this seems kind of counterintuitive to what Mozilla has really been known for as this, privacy-respecting solution. It doesn't really make any sense with the image they had built up. And the purpose of these posts is to explain why they're trying to do this. Now, you might still disagree, but the explanation is very important to have. Keeping the internet and the content that makes it a vital and vibrant part of our global society free and accessible has been a core focus for Mozilla from our founding. How do we ensure creators get paid for their work? I don't think that's been a core part of their mission. I feel like that's a relatively recent one. But regardless, how do we prevent huge segments of the world from being priced out of access through paywalls? I would say this makes sense to their prior mission. How do we ensure that privacy is not a privilege of the few, but a fundamental right for everyone? Now we're certainly on track for Mozilla that most people know. These are significant and enduring questions that have no single answer. But for right now on the internet of today, a big part of the answer is online advertising. A big part of the problem is also online advertising. The solution is, how do you do it better? We started engaging in this space because the way the industry works today is fundamentally broken. It doesn't put people first. It's not privacy respecting, and it's increasingly anti-competitive. There have to be better options. Mozilla can play a key role in creating these better options, not just by advocating for them, but also by actually building them. We can't just ignore online advertising. It's a major driver of how the internet works and is funded. There is this utopian vision of the internet where, if we go back to how it was in the early days, there was no advertising. This is a time that existed, but didn't really exist in the sense that people seem to remember it as. What was different is the web was a lot more decentralized back then, so there were a lot of websites, there were a lot of blogs that didn't have advertising on them. But the corporate websites, they've always had ads, at least ever since you could load them in a reasonable amount of time. The form of those ads has certainly changed, and a lot of the ones we see now are quite invasive. We all love autoplay video ads with sound. That's honestly the least invasive of some of the stuff that you can really get, but regardless, advertising is not going away. We have the beginnings of a theory on what fixing it might look like. A mix of different business practices, technology, products, and public policy engagements, and we have started to do work on all these fronts. It's been clear to us in recent weeks that what we haven't done is step back to explain our thinking in a broader context of our advertising efforts. For this, we owe our community an apology for not engaging and communicating our vision effectively. Mozilla is only Mozilla if we share our thinking, engage people along the way, and incorporate that feedback into our efforts to help reform the ecosystem. This I completely agree with. they completely dropped the ball when it came to the PPA rollout, the privacy-preserving attribution. People were able to fill in the gaps and just say what it was going to be. It was being treated like spyware. They were being treated like Microsoft with Recall. Because they just didn't bother to explain it, they just pushed things out there. Mozilla has a new CEO. Mitchell Baker, the one that everybody complained about, is gone from the role. I am willing to give Laura a shot and see what is going to happen here. Laura is new in the role. You get one major mistake and one apology. Anything more than that, and you don't have any sympathy from me any longer. With that being said, let's have a look at their theory. Our theory for improving online advertising requires work across 3 areas that relate to and build upon one another. Firstly, regulation. And this is what was left out in the prior PPA discussion. There was no discussion whatsoever about going to regulators to make that solution actually something that anybody would use, because, oh, we build this privacy-preserving way of doing advertising. Why would anybody use that if there's the non-privacy-preserving way that gives them a lot more data? The regulation is kind of like the core part of making this all work. This is just a bunch of examples they've done previously. We recognize that technology can only get us so far and needs to work hand in hand with legislation to fix the most egregious practices in the ecosystem. With the upcoming new mandate in the European Commission expected to focus on advertising and the push for a federal privacy legislation in the United States reaching a fever pitch, we intend to build upon this work to continue pushing for better privacy protections. Standards. Mozilla is actively involved in advancing cutting-edge proposals for privacy-preserving advertising. This includes collaborating on interoperable private attribution and contributing to the Private Advertising Technology Community Group, PATCG. The goal of this work is to identify legitimate, lawful, and non-harmful use cases and promote a healthy web by developing privacy-respecting technical mechanisms for those use cases. This would make it practical to more strictly limit the most invasive practices like ubiquitous third-party cookies, and doing that without replacing it with something worse. Google, I've seen what you've tried to do. Thirdly, products. Building things is the only way for Mozilla to prove these hypotheses. For years, Mozilla products have supported an advertising business without the privacy invasive techniques common today by deploying features such as total cookie protection and advanced tracking protection to protect our users, and will continue to explore ways to add advertiser value while respecting user privacy, including by exploring how we can support other businesses in achieving these goals via Anonym. This was the ad tech company they bought quite a while back now. Our goal is to build a model to demonstrate how ads can sustain a business online while respecting people's privacy. This then links over to Laura's blog, which we'll check out in just a moment. Fixing the problems with online advertising feels like an intractable challenge. Having been fortunate enough to be part of Mozilla for well over a decade, I am excited to tackle this challenge head on. It's an opportunity for us to bring a whole community, including often divergent voices from advertising, technology, government, and civil society, to the table to look for a better way. Personally, I don't see a world where online advertising disappears. Ads have been a key part of funding creators and publishers in every era, from newspaper to radio to television. However, I can imagine a world where advertising online happens in a way that respects all of us and where commercial and public interests are in balance. That's a world I want to help build, when newspaper, radio, and television were the main source of advertising, were the main source of media. They didn't need to collect all of your data to have a successful advertising model. That doesn't need to happen online either. Now, let's go over to Laura's blog, Improving Online Advertising Through Product and infrastructure. Across both pillars, product and infrastructure, we maintain the same goal: to build advertising solutions that respect individuals' rights, solutions that achieve a balance between commercial value and public interest. Why is that something for Mozilla to address? Because Mozilla's mission is to build a better internet, and for the foreseeable future at least, advertising is a key commercial engine of the internet, and the most efficient way to ensure the majority of content remains free and accessible to as many people as possible. I know during the whole, crypto boom, there were attempts at doing, local crypto mining on people's machines rather than doing advertising, but that obviously didn't go over very well. Honestly, under Mitchell Baker, I had lost all hope in Mozilla. I like the engineers at Mozilla, but it seemed like that corporate leadership was just trying to drive the company into the ground, take as much money from it as possible, and just watch it burn. Hopefully, under Laura, things can be better. Right now, the trade-offs people are asked to make online are too significant. Yes, advertising enables free access to most of what the internet provides, but the lack of practical control we all have over how our data is collected and shared is unacceptable, and solutions to this problem that simply rely on handing more of our data to a few gigantic private companies are not really solutions that help the people who use the internet at all. All you're doing is trading one big company for a different big company. What an improvement! These are the problems Mozilla hopes to address through a product strategy that is grounded on our core principles of privacy, openness, and choice. We know that not everyone in our community will embrace our entrance into this market, but taking on controversial topics because we believe they make the internet better for all of us is a key feature of Mozilla's history. And that willingness to take on the hard things, even when not universally accepted, is exactly what the internet needs today. I have seen a few notable people in the FOSS world calling on for a fork of Firefox. Now, do I think that's going to happen? Not really. Maintaining a browser is incredibly difficult. There's very few people who are insane enough to do so. Andreas Kling is one of them, but it is very rare that you find people who actually want to go and do so. One of the most obvious places we will do this work is across our own products, including Firefox, FakeSpot, and likely new efforts in the future. New efforts that hopefully do not get killed before they make money, or new efforts that hopefully are not being released in 20 countries, and for whatever reason, my country is not included. Advertising on our own products will remain focused on respecting the privacy of the people who use them. Those are table stakes for us, fundamental qualities, which will be our North Star. I don't think anybody was doubting, actually maybe some people are doubting advertising being added more deeply into Firefox after how the privacy-preserving attribution thing was handled, but also there's been some advertising stuff built into the browser and the whole Google search deal, so they have a better track record than Google, will say. As part of this work, we are also committing to being transparent and open about our intent and plans prior to launching tests or features. With that, I want to build on the apology Mark made in his blog several weeks ago, and before we explained our intent of how the technology was intended to work, we landed some code in Firefox as part of an origin trial of privacy-preserving attribution, PPA. While the trial was never activated for external users, this understandably led to confusion and concern that we are working to address. We will redouble our engagement with regulators and civil society to address any concerns. There will be much more to come about our work within our products, and you will have time to ask questions and give us feedback. This is ultimately all we ask for. Yes, people are going to have problems with things they are doing regarding advertising whatsoever, but all we ask is tell people it is happening. Tell people it is being worked on. Tell people the way it works, and tell people why you are doing it. I think what is very important here is in both blog posts, they're not making excuses for this. They know they screwed up. They know there was a lot of backlash here, and they know that this cannot keep happening. Now, if it does keep happening, well, that's a whole nother story. But as I said earlier, I'm willing to give the new CEO a shot and see where things go. Building better technology for the industry. Anonym is building technology that can provide more privacy-preserving infrastructure for data sharing between advertisers and publishers in a way that also supports a level playing field rather than consolidating data in a few large companies. Advertising will not improve unless we address the underlying data sharing issue and solve the economic incentives that rely on that data. We want to reshape the industry so that aggregated population insights are the norm instead of platforms sharing individual user data with each other indiscriminately. A better future. As I said earlier in this blog, we do this fully acknowledging our expanded focus on online advertising won't be embraced by everyone in our community. That is certainly one way to put it. And knowing that as we create innovative approaches, we will need to account for our users' evolving expectations. That's never a comfortable position to be in. But we firmly believe that building a better future for online advertising is critical to our overall goal of building a better future for the internet. I would rather have a world where Mozilla is actively engaged in creating positive solutions for hard problems than one where we only critique from the sidelines. It's a good way to describe the FSF today. We will continue to work with others to grapple the bigger question of how to find alternative solutions to advertising for funding the internet's future, but we cannot afford to ignore the reality we live in now. But that does not mean that any of us should have to accept the broken advertising models we have today. As we've done throughout our history, Mozilla will pave the road to a better future through influencing public policy, improving standards, and through actively creating better products and infrastructure. And most importantly, we will do this together with the thousands of other companies, advocates, policymakers, and concerned internet users who are seeking better options and more control over their online experiences. Now, I really want to know your thoughts, because I'm sure a lot of you are gonna have very interesting opinions about Mozilla getting involved in advertising. Even if it's to improve it, I want to know what you think. Are you in support of this? Are you against it? Do you think it should go another route entirely? I would love to know. So if you like the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to the Brodie, linked in the description. Down below. My voice is still dying from over the weekend. I'm gonna go, but I still run Firefox, I run Brave, I run Chromium, I run a lot of things because I'm not tied to a piece of technology, I just use the things I want to use.